Welcome to this peaceful moment, a place where you can slow down, breathe, and let your body relax. Take a deep breath in and let it go slowly. Feel the tension begin to fade, little by little. I'm glad you're here, and if you enjoy this kind of calming content, feel free to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next sessions. Now, let's begin our journey into relaxation and calm. In the light of a distant dawn, unlike the dawn of today, when the earth was wetter and wilder and the air was thick with the scent of algae and mud, there lived those who came before us by thousands of centuries. They had no names to inscribe their histories, nor a language to hang their tales upon. Yet their footsteps pressed into the clay, the fires they hid to preserve warmth, remained witnesses to the fact that they had been here. That life millions of years ago was a mixture of fear, wonder, and discovery. The early humans lived in small, close-knit groups, bound by fear of the night and hope for the day. Their dwellings were no more than caves carved into hillsides, or primitive huts made of intertwined branches. They chose their locations carefully where flowing waters converged, and the wind struck the cliffs, shielding them from prowling beasts. In those times, the earth did not belong to the weak. Its forests, plains, and swamps were ruled by ferocious creatures. Giant serpents slithered among the trees, their massive bodies as long as living trunks, coiling around their prey to crush bone as easily as brittle branches. The early humans knew that survival came only through intelligence, and that the strength of such beings could be overcome only by careful planning and a patience as enduring as stone. One night, when the moon hung full and its light filtered through the gaps of the forest branches, the tribe heard a deep sound, like distant thunder, yet it emanated from the grass itself. The ground trembled slightly, and a cold scent poured from the earth, as if exhaled from the depths of a dark cavern. They realized that the giant serpent had returned, the same that had taken a child from them in last season's rains. Its quest was not for vengeance, but for safety, and to restore a balance without which life could not continue. The men and women gathered around a faint fire, exchanging looks before words. The eldest among them, with scattered white hair and a face carved by experience, raised his staff and gestured toward a group of young hunters. He did not command. He suggested, as if to say, "If you wish for the children to survive, we must face the shadow that lurks between the trees." With the first rays of dawn, the group moved, carrying spears made from hardened bones and sharp stones they had polished over days. They knew the serpent could sense body heat, so they covered themselves in cold mud to hide their warmth from its gaze. Instead of rushing it, they tracked its traces in the earth, a wide trail splitting the grass, a heavy scent they could not mistake. They found it near a wide pool coiled around a broken trunk, its enormous mouth opening like a gateway to another darkness. They did not attack at once, but waited until it lifted its head, exposing its body and leaving it vulnerable. One of the young men advanced slowly, dragging his feet through the mud to make a sound that would draw the beast's attention. The serpent lifted its head suddenly, exhaled a scorching puff of air, and lunged toward the movement. Only then did the plan unfold. From a tree above, 2 hunters dropped a net woven from strong fibers, entangling the serpent's front. At the same moment, others rushed from the sides, driving spears into precisely targeted spots, taught by the knowledge of their ancestors, just behind the head and along the sides where the scales were softer. The scene was silent, filled with intense focus, as if the entire forest held its breath. With each movement of the serpent, the earth shook. But the humans remained steady, using their wits against its might, until finally it calmed and stilled. They returned to their tribe with thick hides to craft shields, meat to sustain them through drought, and most importantly, with reassurance. In those times, victory was measured not by possessions, but by survival and by the lessons one could pass to the next generation. Over the days that followed, they told the story of that quiet night when they faced the serpent and how they united to remain alive. For them, stories were more than tales. They were the tribe's memory, a candle illuminating a path without maps. A covenant linking the living to those who had gone before. Thus their lives continued, a series of confrontations and discoveries between struggle with nature and lessons learned from it, between fear of darkness and the calm born of fire's warmth. Perhaps none of them remained now, but their story lives in every step we take upon this earth, and in every moment when a modern human asks, "How did our ancient ancestors live?" That victory over the giant serpent was only one chapter in the volatile life of early humans. The world in those times was never steady. It shifted like the restless waves of a ceaseless sea. Days after returning to their cave, the weather changed abruptly. Dark clouds, like the hides of black animals, hovered over the forest. The air thickened, the winds rose, and every creature in the woods seemed to brace for something they already knew. The tribe realized that the storm season had begun and that they must prepare to move to higher ground. For them, migration was not merely moving from one place to another. It was a new risk. The paths they took were fraught with surprises, predators searching for prey, mud-laden lands, and hidden trails ending abruptly at sheer cliffs. Yet there was no alternative. If the caves flooded, no shelter would protect their fires or dry hides. The tribe moved at dawn's first weak light, walking in a long line. Men led to scout the path, women carried children and supplies in the middle, and young hunters flanked the sides, watching every movement between the trees. Silence was not a choice, but a necessity. Animals awake at this hour were anxious, many seeking shelter like them. As they approached a shallow stream, they noticed something unusual. Birds circled the area, as if sensing prey or danger. One hunter crouched over the damp sand. There, he saw deep, enormous tracks, heavier than a human's by many times. He recognized them immediately. A big cat, perhaps a rocky lion or a saber-toothed predator capable of felling a man with a single strike. But the matter was not theirs alone. At the water's edge, a giant female mammoth struggled to lift her calf trapped between tree roots, dragged down by the night flood. She trumpeted in a deep voice that shook the air, lifting her massive trunk in an attempt to rescue her young. Despite her immense strength, the mud held her. The tribe watched silently. The mammoth was no enemy. It was a creature fighting to survive, like them. Yet they understood that her cries would attract the big cat, and if that happened, the calf would not be the only victim. The men exchanged short glances. Their elder advanced slowly, carrying a long branch, waving it gently. He knew that approaching too closely might anger the mother, but leaving her alone with her calf could spark a bloody battle that served no one. He raised the branch high, emitting a strange tone passed down through generations, a sound meant to calm large animals, signaling that they meant no harm. The mother paused, turned toward them, eyes wide, fear and instinct mixed in her gaze. She did not charge. 4 men slowly approached, using strong logs to lift the calf from the mud. After several careful attempts, the young mammoth slipped upward, breathing hard, shaking from the cold. The mother lifted her trunk high, emitting a short, grateful trumpet, then departed with her calf toward the forest. A strange calm settled afterward, as if the forest itself had realized that humans were not merely hunters, but beings striving as best they could to live without destroying all that surrounded them. Yet that calm did not last. Hours later, the tribe reached rocky heights overlooking the valley. They witnessed a breathtaking scene. Heavy rain pouring across the plains, the swelling river reflecting the gray sky, everything glistening as though the earth had become a giant mirror. They had to find a new cave before nightfall. They walked along the cliff edge until discovering a narrow opening in the rock, hiding an inner passage. They lit torches and stepped in slowly. The space opened into natural chambers, carved over thousands of years. On the walls, faded drawings depicted massive animals, red handprints and long spears suggesting hunts. Perhaps people like them had once passed here, living similar stories now lost to time. In the center, they lit a fire, arranging stones to contain the warmth. Children sat close, watching sparks leap like tiny fleeing stars. The elders began recounting a new story, adding it to the tribe's memory, of the giant serpent, the mother and her calf, and the paths that tested human patience every day. Yet the true story unfolded in the deep night. Lying on their hides, eyes closed up with raindrops striking the rock above, they felt a shared realization they were not alone in this world. Their survival depended not only on strength, but on unity and understanding the land they inhabited. Thus, they slept beneath the firelight, unaware that tomorrow would bring a new chapter of relentless life, and that every step they took in this vast world would one day become part of a story for those who came after them. With the dawn of the next day, the tribe awoke to faint light seeping through the cave opening. the smell of wet earth filling the space. The night had not passed easily. Winds whispered constantly, and distant echoes of falling rocks kept them half awake, listening to the world as though confirming it would not betray them. The first to rise was the young man who had faced the giant serpent. He stood at the cave entrance, scanning the valley. Mist cloaked the landscape in trees resembling silent, ghostly sentinels. Then he noticed something else. New footprints near the rocks, human, slightly larger than their own. He returned quickly to the others, gathering the men around the fire. He told them what he had seen. They exchanged wary glances. The presence of another tribe meant only two possibilities: an alliance for survival or a struggle for everything: water, game, even shelter. In prehistoric life, a misjudgment often meant the end of one side. The elder decided to investigate before the tribe could be surprised by uninvited guests. 3 hunters accompanied him, moving silently among the trees, sensing the path with their eyes and ears. Soon, they spotted smoke rising from behind large boulders. Approaching carefully, they found a small group of humans around a dying fire. Their bodies were exhausted, faces painted with gray, a camouflage used for hunting. They were tired, injured, and clearly survivors, not enemies. The elder advanced, hands raised, signaling peaceful intentions. The other group turned toward him, surprise and caution in their eyes. Communication relied on gestures more than words. Minutes later, they understood. These people had fled a distant valley flooded by storms, losing half their group, seeking shelter until the earth dried and the sky settled. The 2 tribes returned to their cave with the strangers. A heavy silence fell for a moment. Their own tribe was unaccustomed to receiving outsiders, yet the women and children saw the wounds, saw the fatigue etched into their faces, and realized these people were no threat. Everyone gathered around the fire, sharing what little food they had. Some dried meat, a handful of berries, and a sip of water from the large skin container. As they ate, one of the strangers began to tell his story. His voice was low, yet filled with awe. He spoke of a strange beast seen near the valley 2 days before the flood. A massive creature, covered in thick fur, resembling a bear, but taller, with teeth wider than usual. They had heard its roar in the night, then saw it approaching their camp, pawing at the earth as if searching for something buried. It did not attack them directly, but its presence made everyone consider leaving before curiosity turned into predation. The tribe listened in silence, knowing the forest held many creatures they had never seen, and that every story carried lessons to be learned. When the stranger finished, the hunters exchanged worried glances. The beast's territory overlapped the valley the tribes had traveled yesterday, possibly following the same paths. The following night passed in cautious vigilance. The rain continued intermittently, and the smoke from the fire painted strange shapes on the cave ceiling, like warnings from the outside world. Yet everyone felt a sense of strength in their unity. By the morning of the 3rd day, the tribe made a bold decision. They would no longer hide. They would form a large hunting group combining men from both tribes to explore the surrounding area for signs of the strange beast. It was not for battle, but to protect their children and secure their future. The large group set out. Their steps on the muddy ground were slow and heavy, but their eyes were alert. They were no longer just individuals fighting to survive. They had become a single force. In the depths of the forest, where shadows merged with sound, they began to sense something watching them. Something massive, breathing quietly, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. At the edge of a dense forest, where branches interlaced like fingers trying to grasp sunlight, the hunters paused. They heard something. Not the rustle of wind, not the chirp of birds, but a steady rhythm, like a deep pulse emanating from the earth itself. They exchanged glances. This was not the sound of familiar prey, but of a heavier, slower, stranger creature. The elder advanced cautiously, signaling the others to stay low. A few meters ahead, on a small ledge overlooking a wide clearing, one hunter crawled over a rock to peer down. His eyes widened in simultaneous awe and fear. There, in the clearing, stood the beast described by the strangers. It was enormous, like a boulder cloaked in fur. Its shoulders were broad, its legs sturdy as tree trunks, and its mouth full of long, powerful teeth, designed not just to pierce, but to tear through bone. It resembled a bear, yet taller by twice, heavier by 3 times. With every step it took, the ground trembled beneath the trees. The creature did not attack. It sniffed the earth, probing with its massive body, as if searching for something lost long ago. It approached a large tree trunk and began scratching it with sharp claws. Shards of wood flew into the air. The hunters understood that the beast was not inherently aggressive, yet if it felt threatened, it would destroy anything in its path. The hunter returned to the others, eyes wide, and they whispered among themselves. They did not plan to fight the beast. To do so would likely mean death for one side. All they wanted was to ensure it moved away from their cave and from their children waiting behind the mountain rocks, hearts tiny and anxious. The discussion was long. Finally, the elder proposed a simple plan: fire. Most large creatures of that era feared the smell of smoke, avoiding areas where flames burned. But lighting a fire near the beast meant approaching it, a risk as great as facing it directly. Still, there was no other choice. The elder chose 3 of the most agile men, along with one from the other tribe known for moving silently. They carried bundles of dry grass and stones to spark fire, and approached the left side of the forest, where the wind would carry the smoke toward the clearing. They advanced slowly, crawling through mud, hiding behind tree trunks. Hearts pounded with every calculated step, as if each could be their last. Once near enough, they piled the grass into small heaps and sparked the first flame. At first, nothing caught fire, but persistent blowing lifted the smoke gradually, forming a thin gray thread rising into the sky. The scent reached the beast. It paused, turning its massive head toward the smoke, emitting a low, warning growl. The men fed the flames, the smoke thickened, and the fire provoked the ancient instinct in the creature, which had long feared fire. Finally, the beast moved. It did not run nor roar. It simply turned and walked deeper into the forest, away from the cave, away from humans. The men watched until it vanished among the trees, no longer feeling the tremor of the earth beneath them. Returning to the rest of the group, they were met with relieved eyes. It was not a victory over a monster, but over an ancient fear over the unknown itself. Back in the cave at sunset, children ran to them first, holding their men's hands, checking the hides as if to confirm they had truly returned. The two tribes sat together around the growing bright fire, like a small sun shielding them from everything. The elder spoke, his voice calm, telling what had happened, how wisdom was chosen over brute force, and how humans, since the dawn of time, were not the strongest in body but in mind and in their ability to unite when threatened. As night passed, the rain ceased, the moonlight escaped through clouds. Everyone sensed that the coming days would be calmer, the forest granting time for life, hunting, learning, and new stories. That night, they slept peacefully, as if the earth finally allowed them rest, even for a brief moment. Little did they know that this moment of calm would mark a new chapter, one that would alter their destiny, as they would soon discover something buried in the earth, a secret from the world millions of years ago. In the following morning, as fog lifted and dew sparkled on the forest leaves, the tribes realized that what they had lived was more than survival. It was part of a greater story than any one person's strength. They had seen with their own eyes that the vast world, with its giant creatures, wildness, and majestic beauty, favored only those who understood it, not those who sought to dominate it. Their footprints in the mud were fragile, likely to vanish in a few days, yet their impact on the human story endured. Survival was no accident. It was a result of unity, intelligence, and courage. Faced with a merciless world, against the giant serpent, the mother mammoth, and the mysterious beast whose steps shook the ground, they proved that humans, from their very first moments, were born to resist, to explore, to protect, and to learn, to rise above fear. The fire they lit was more than a tool. It was a declaration. We are here, and we will live, despite all that surrounds us. And so, amid forest shadows, the echoes of rain and the trembling night, the first contours of the human story were born. A story of those who left no written mark, yet inscribed their existence in the silence of the earth, and in the memory of those who would come after. No matter how time advances, no matter how life changes, their story remains a deep whisper, reminding us that humans were never mere creatures of the earth, but always, inevitably, path makers. And so, when the morning breathed its first light, and sunlight pierced the tree trunks as if the world were opening its eyes anew, the two tribes felt something long unknown, a sense of belonging in a shifting universe, not just as visitors. They had endured heavy days, confronting fear in its many forms, yet emerged stronger, not in muscle, but in spirit, unbowed by the fiercest storms. Within the cave, beside the fire that flickered and blazed with each added branch, they understood that the human story was not one of blind struggle with nature,